Hey everyone, thanks for joining me again in my YouTube channel. This is Workshop Quick Takes. And if you did not join us for part 1 of this mini-series, we are stepping through the front end of a 2005 Honda CR-V trying to figure out why won't it stop vibrating. Last time, we looked at the compliance bushings on the front lower control arms and got those swapped out. While doing that, however, we discovered we had a problem with a ball joint, so we're going to get on that next. You do need some specialty tools and just a little bit more workshop experience, but it is doable at home. So, let's get outside and get working. In part 1, we demonstrated the process of safely lifting and securing the vehicle. But even if you didn't watch part 1, today's work assumes you're familiar with the process. For one thing, the labor and tools are a bit more difficult and shouldn't be tackled solo by anyone who hasn't already done a bit of basic suspension work. Once the front corner is in the air and the vehicle is safely supported, we can proceed with advanced disassembly. This step is unpleasant and there's no way around it. You do need to break torque on this axle nut and get that off of there. If you've seen Honda axle nuts before, then you're familiar with this crimp style tab here. You want to use some kind of rated pry bar. I've got this Craftsman one here, whatever. And then tap that back out before attempting to remove anything else. You also want to do this step before removing the brake hardware. You need to be able to have somebody assisting you in the cabin holding on to the brakes before you try and take this off. Yeah, but let's go ahead and start it just to make sure you have all the... Okay. Yep. We won't drag this out for you, but you get the idea that these aren't fun. We went with every trick. Extra large breaker bar, cheater bar, penetrating oil, heat, and even hammering the breaker bar while applying torque. The only thing we didn't do here was bash the nut off using a pry bar and sledge against one of its flat faces, or just cut it. Okay, there it is, finally. Total time to break it, about 20 minutes. For comparison, here's a preview of how the job went a few months later, this time at our alternate location using better tools. Time to break it with a pneumatic impact driver, less than 5 minutes. Okay, next we have to remove these 2 caliper bolts in order to remove the caliper. These are 14 mils. Let's see if we can do ourselves a favor and get that caliper compressed back in now before we have to remove it later. Now, to make sure this caliper doesn't flop around while we're working and possibly suffer damage, I'm going to use this bundle of 14 gauge solid core electrical wire and then try and hang this way up out of the way here somehow. Brake pads come off next along with their little tensioning springs. Remember, this one with the tab is the back one. And these are still in great condition. I redid these at some point. Next up, we've got the retainer bolts, and these are 17s. That's 1, and that's 2. Someone just had a car towed into the lot. Usually it's the other way around, so I'm not sure what's up. Remember not to let this drop. The other thing to pay attention to is that the guide shoes are still into the caliper retainer here. These actually come with the brake pads on this vehicle, and then you replace them. Typical Honda, we've got 2 Phillips screws that just retain the brake rotor. There we go. Little known fact about screws in that condition is that sometimes an actual hit on them, like you were driving with an impact gun, will break them free. Well, this one's not wanting to come free today, so I guess we're getting the pusher screws and doing it that way. There it is. And in case you're curious, that was an M8 1.25. That happened to be a 20mm screw, and it was more than long enough. Okay, now we finished pulling the hub nut. Okay, next let's take a look at getting this lower ball joint nut off. This one here is using a castle nut with a cotter pin. Sometimes these also come with a nylon collared lock nut. And as it happens, our replacement ball joint came with a new nut and a new cotter pin. This particular one happens to be a 17. They may vary in size. Okay, that's off. Okay, next step is to pop this ball joint out of the lower arm here. And normally it's a taper fit. I don't know how tight this one is. I found with a lot of these smaller ones, you can often cheat by using a pitman arm puller and it will do the job just nicely. Small pitman arm puller like this one's only about 20 bucks at Harbor Freight, so it's not even worth trying to rent it at the auto parts store. Just buy one and you'll have it for the next handful of jobs. Okay, that one's loose. Sometimes these are really tight, sometimes they're not. Oh yeah, I forgot it's useful on doing this to remove the sway bar end link. So let's go ahead and get that off of there as well. This is another bolt that'll vary depending on what kind of aftermarket parts you might have installed. But this particular one looks to be a 17. Perfect. That works fine as long as you can do it without jacking up the boot back here. Otherwise, there's a 5mm insert and you stick a hex key in there and use that to hold the bolt while you turn this off with a wrench. Okay, now the sway bar is no longer trying to do exactly what it was designed to do. There we go. And now, I seem to be pulling my CV axle loose. All that drama we just went through was to get at this. To give you an idea what we're up against, let's just pull the new one out real fast. There's the ball joint. It presses down in. And here in our replacement parts are the cotter pin and a snap ring. Now this is a real snap ring that you could remove using a snap ring tool. One on here, not so much. It's just this thing. Okay, there we go. This is the kind of situation where a set of picks is very handy. And then there's the condition of our boot. It's all pushed in, torn up, splitting. So it's not long for this world, unfortunately. Now we have to push this ball joint up and out. At this point, you've got to make a decision. Re-grease and replace the boot, or continue with the full ball joint. The trade-off here is that the boot option is easier, but some water and dirt have probably gotten inside and started to degrade the unit. For the time and labor already invested, we're going with a replacement unit. The next question is, can we replace it on the vehicle, or do we finish pulling off the carrier assembly and take it to the bench vise? Once you disconnect the strut from the carrier and then reassemble again, the vehicle will probably need an alignment. But you may find there's not a good way to remove and reattach the ball joint on the vehicle with your available tools and lift. Use caution when deciding how to disconnect the ABS wheel speed sensor. The sensor can bind up in the hub carrier and then break apart when you attempt to pry it out. These cost anywhere from $75 to $150 each, so if necessary, disconnect the connector and bracket at the body instead and just bring it inside with the carrier assembly. I guess my only other option is to pop the clip here, pop the clip here, pop the screw there, and disconnect the actual connector up there. This is a ball joint extractor kit. This particular ball joint service kit came from Harbor Freight, about 100 bucks I think it was. And what it has is this giant thingy for compressing, and then all these different little cups and plates to work around the ball joint and get it pushed up out of there. So one way or another, we got to figure out a combination of these that will loosen that ball joint out of its press fit. We didn't capture it on camera, but it turned out this ball joint is pretty easy to remove. Just hit the shaft side a few times with a 4-pound sledgehammer and it will pop right out towards the axle side. The installation of the replacement unit didn't go quite so fast. Here's the new one. This one, however, has to go in gracefully. I'm thinking that maybe a cap piece like this is a good starting point. And then on the bottom side, maybe something like this. Yeah. Get this whole clamped assembly over it. It's just barely going to fit too. And then start pressing it down. And it might have to pause and swap pieces midway, but we'll see. Well, I think it's at least trying. So it'll probably help is to go to take this down to my basement workshop, put this in the bench vise, and just keep turning until this is pressed in. maybe all the way in. Looks like so, because I think we're finally down to the snap ring point, or almost. Well, as sometimes happens with these jobs, nothing is going quite right. I'm just barely getting down to the snap ring part because this thing won't press any farther in. It's not manufactured at exactly the right tolerances as far as I can see. If this happens to you, then you've got a judgment call to make. Do you go argue with a parts counter clerk about defective kit and hope they'll replace the unit without drama, then do the press work twice? Or is the unit close enough that it can be safely installed with minor modifications? For our job, we decided a slight nip and tuck of the trim ring lip would permit us to complete this installation. Aggravating, yes, but not more aggravating than spending 2 or 3 times as much for top shelf parts options at the chain brand auto parts stores. This is an old vehicle and it's just not worth it. That was not ideal in every possible way. Let's see if this will at least kind of slide over it now. Okay, following some really weird delays there, we're now hopefully ready to put this back in roughly the same condition it came out. Okay, remember, the bolt came in from this side, the nut from this side. Let's just start with the knuckle. And actually, let's just start with the top one, and then we can hinge everything in. I don't want this too thick or it'll end up on the ABS wheel speed sensor, but we do want a little for corrosion protection. Good. It doesn't take a lot when using anti-seize on bolts like this. In fact, you don't want to over lubricate it. You just want it to get into the threads and help prevent corrosion from setting in. And also, can we still manipulate this into place? Yes, good. Okay, so that's one bolt completely removed and completely reassembled. I see a second problem I do not like. The grease cap on that ball joint is going to interfere with the CV axle. Well, this is just getting ridiculous, so I went off camera and then actually got in there and ground off the head of that thing and then just put some, make sure it was as tight as I could get it, and put some black RTV around it. But not buying Master Pro again. Okay, I think I'm gonna go ahead and finish getting the ABS wheel speed sensor fully secured back in place. And the way this works, that one threads around there, that one comes up here. So the 1 point reattaches right here with a 10 mil bolt, and the other one's up there with a 10 mil bolt, and that orange connector needs to be plugged in first before attaching this bolt and unplugged only after removing that bolt. So once again, we have a 19 on this side, 22 on this side. That's pretty good. 2 bolts removed here on the wheel speed sensor, replaced. 2 bolts removed here on the arm, replaced. On the anti-roll bar, replaced. Still got to do the bottom ball joint one before we move on to the brakes. New one's a 19. So now we see it good and torqued, and then make sure that one of the slots in the castle nut is aligned with that hole so we can insert our cotter pin. Okay, that's pretty good and torqued. Actually, we're aligned right now. There we go. That's back in. Time to put the brake rotor back on. The 2 holes for our screws exist here and here only. This isn't universally drilled, so it will only go on correctly this way, and then we have access to those holes. They're not critical, it's just nice that they hold the disc rotor on while you're doing other things like mounting or dismounting the caliper bracket or changing brake pads. Make them reasonably tight, but that's all they need. This can be a little aggravating because you got to line it up blind. to get one of those screws to bite, but a little anti-seize on there to help the threading start, and it's not too bad. Double check our caliper floating pins. I haven't done that in a while. They still move, and I didn't see any uneven wear on our brake pads. Remember, this one with the squealer tab was on the back. That there, if the brake pad's getting low, it starts to drag on the disc and make a horrible noise, so that hopefully you do something about it. Okay. Something to note about this design where they have the divorced caliper pin, we just need to make sure that this little rotatable part here that has the cut off sides lines up with there, because we don't want this to get caught on that lip. That lip is there to keep this aligned. At this point, we should note that we've done brake work on a few different Hondas, and all of them have a tendency to stretch the caliper pin bolts in reassembly. We found it's just smart to replace the floating pin hardware periodically. In theory, I think Honda says you're not supposed to reuse these. Every time you pull one, you're supposed to start putting a new one on. I think it'll be good enough for now. I just have I had the caliper compressed in order to get it off. Okay. So don't apply the brakes all at once. Just tap them gently and kind of pump them up about 4 or 5 times.
Don't press them very hard. Tap on it.
Just tap on it gently and then kind of increase 4 or 5 times until you feel it firm up. Yeah, I was watching it. Okay, go ahead. Yep. Okay, that should be full torque. In fact, we've turned this slightly past where it was before, which is good. So now we just need to tighten that in, and I think we're there. I'm going to use this piece of square steel bar and my giant hammer and see what I can do about that. All right, that's not going to back itself off, so we should be good. That hopefully finished that. Now we just need to take it in for an alignment, and if it's still having some shaking issues, then we'll have to start troubleshooting elsewhere under the vehicle. But so far we've done the control arms and the left lower ball joint, and those were all contributing to the issue. But there may still be more. It's an old vehicle. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us again today. Hopefully you found that helpful. Maybe it'll help you start solving a problem on your vehicle. Next time, in part 3, we're going to keep digging into this a little bit deeper and look at engine mounts. So we'll see you again next time, whenever that is.
Has anyone seen my phone?